Hey, it's Donna here. I am going to get you thinking outside of the box with these thrifty Christmas DIY decor thrift store makeovers. Let's get started. I found this beautiful crochet doily for 50 cents. There was actually a set of two, but I'm just going to show you this project using one of the doilies. Just removing the tag, and you can see that there are two pieces to this. I needed to take them apart. So I'm just going to cut through some of the stitching, and yes, I know I should have been using some narrow tipped scissors, but I'm just using these ones. These are my favorite scissors, so I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna go with what I have. But you need to be careful because you don't want to accidentally cut into the flower portion of this doily. I accidentally did at one point, so just be aware of that. I've cut them all apart, and I'm going to set these pieces aside for maybe some projects at a later date. You're going to need a smaller embroidery hoop, and I'm just going to take this apart, and I'm going to put the inner portion of that doily over top. I'm going to try to fit the hoop over top. Now, I do end up removing the screw completely because this was just too thick and bulky to handle the hoop with the screw in. And so I'm just going to go ahead now and put this hoop back in place over top, and now it fits really well. So I'm just going to move the doily, pull on it, tug on it just to get it into place properly. And now I'm going to be taking some string, and I am going to tighten that hoop by placing the string through the holes where the screw originally was. So I figured that this would be the best way to get that hoop nice and snug around the doily so it doesn't fall apart. I'm going to tie a basic knot, and I am pulling quite tight on this. The best part about this as well is that then you've got a little hanger to create a Christmas tree ornament. So you can see I am pulling really tight on that. I did not want this to pop off. I'm straightening out that knot, and then I'm going to just trim off the two tails, and I'm going to tie those two ends together, and then you will have your hanger for a Christmas ornament. That's right, this is going to be an ornament for my tree. So now I am going to just again pull on this just a little bit to make sure it's nice and taut, and then I'm going to start to trim off the extra. I'm trying to get my scissors as flush as possible with the hoops while I'm trimming off all that excess. Now I'm going to go in and use some hot glue. I'm going to just wait a few seconds, and then I'm taking my finger and running it over. That'll help smooth it all out, get the glue right down into the doily as well as between the two hoop layers, and that will help to secure it all together. I'm going to continue to go around working in sections, just cutting off the excess doily bits using my hot glue, again waiting a few seconds, running my finger over the top and removing all the excess glue. I found that this worked really, really well, but of course, if you have another suggestion, please do leave that down in the comments section. Here at the top where the hoop didn't meet completely, I'm just adding a little bit of extra glue underneath the doily, so then it's attached to the base hoop, removing the excess, and then same thing again, just adding a bit and smoothing it all out. So it does look a little messy on the back side. I have this lace trim in white, and it's the width of the hoop and doily. So I'm going to apply that using my hot glue. I'm just going to be stretching it a little bit as I go along to help shape it to the shape of our hoop. Now you could go in and use some fabric on the back side if you'd like, but I wanted my doily to remain see-through so you can see the lights shimmering and some of the evergreen showing through. I just thought that it would be a pretty and interesting look. So to finish off the lace at the back, I'm just going to trim it off, and then I want to add just a little bit of hot glue, not too much because I don't want to add much bulk there and I don't want to see a big glob of glue. And then that was it. It worked out really well, camouflaging all that mess in the back that I had. I'm going to add just a simple little bow here. Just going to create that with this beautiful red ribbon that matches the red rose in the middle so well. I'm just going to use some wire to help secure my little bow into place. I'm just removing the excess wire, and then I want to just figure out the placement of my bow, and I'll be using some hot glue to put that into place. Nice thing about this as well is that it's going to kind of camouflage where the hoop was meeting together, because it does look a little bit awkward, but that was it. It was actually a really simple project, and I really think it's going to be absolutely gorgeous on the tree. I found this copper tray at Value Village for $1.99. I'm just going to remove the price tag. I think this might have been a candle holder, but I'm not totally sure. I also found this house. It's a ceramic house or resin house. I'm not sure. It was damaged a little bit. I picked it up for $4.99, and the original label was still on it in case any of you are interested in that. I'm going to put this house onto the tray, and I'm also going to add some bottle brush trees. So what I typically do is like figure out the placement of my trees first before I start to glue things into place. So I do have another tutorial where I show an idea like this. It's more in depth and I add more to it. I'll have that video linked down below for you in the video description box. But this one's going to be really easy. I'm just removing the bases, fluff up the bottom of the trees if you accidentally smush them like I did. And all I'm going to do is glue them onto the tray. This will not be permanent. You could take this apart easily. I find that the hot glue pops off of this tray, metal trays of any kind, quite easily, but it will make it secure enough so then things won't flop around when you're moving it or anything. I'm going to go ahead and continue to add the rest of my pieces onto the tray. Before I add those little houses in the front, I am going to glue the house into place. And then I'll go ahead and add those little trees. You can add some little figurines on here. I think that would be really a cute touch as well. But I'm just gonna, again, make this really nice and quick and easy for you. And we're just going to stick with the trees for now. So I like to add just a touch of faux snow here. That will cover up and make it into a nice Christmassy and wintry scene. And I'm also going to sprinkle some on the roof. Now, I thought another touch you could do is take some white paint and gently just dry brush it over the house. That would create a nice frosted look. You could also use salt or sugar as your snow if you don't have any faux snow. Here you can see I'm adding some pine cones. I like to add just a touch of nature to my projects. I thought this would be a nice little added touch, and I think it is so pretty and so whimsical. It would even make a really nice hostess gift. My daughter had picked up 2 of these wool placemats, but I'm just going to work on one for today. I also have this placemat that I had got from a friend, and she wasn't using it anymore, so I just grabbed it. I thought it would make a great base for a pillow, and I thought this placemat would be great as a Christmas pillow. I really like the colors, and the Scandinavian look is really popular this year. I'm going to use a combination of some hot glue and fabric glue, but I'm going to just let you know right now, this fabric glue did not work for this wool placemat and this other placemat that I had. But I'm still going to show you this in case you have some better fabric glue than I do. I have used this fabric glue before and it works really well, but because the wool was just too thick and absorbent, the glue did not work, that wet glue. But with the hot glue, it worked really well. So I do go in at a later point and add hot glue all the way around. But for now, I thought I would just show you how I used a combo of the 2. I got them all glued together. At this point, though, it was still drying, and I still continued to work. There was enough hot glue to help pull it all together before I discovered that it was actually not working. So now I'm just trimming off the excess. I'm going to save that scrap for a later date. I've got enough of an edge there so I can go in and create my own hem on that one side. I'm just trimming off the corners here so I can get a nice clean fold line. removing any of the excess fabric so I can have a nice fold. I did have to do a little fiddling around, but it was pretty easy. I am not a sewer. I like to just glue things, so I was trying to make this as easy as possible. So now you can see here, it worked actually really well. I'm going to go ahead and use hot glue now, and I'm going to create my hem. I'm just being mindful that the top piece and the bottom pieces line up, and I was amazed at how well this worked. They were the perfect width to work together. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue to work on my hem for the bottom part here. And then once I've got that all together, I'm going to go back to the other end and start to glue the top and bottom layers together. Again, just using my hot glue to put that all together. I, again, still hadn't figured out by this point that the wet glue was not working for me. I left enough of a space so I can put my filling in. Now, this is some filling that I had on hand already, some fiber fill, but you could also use a pillow if you like. So this is when I ended up discovering that my wet glue did not work, because of course you're moving this thing around and my seams started to come apart. So I stopped what I was doing and I hot glued all the way around the edge. But I did that off camera. I didn't bother showing that because it's pretty standard. So I had gone ahead and just refilled this, and I was so happy I fixed that mistake. Oh, I will admit, it frustrated me that that fabric glue didn't work, but that's all right. We just live and learn, right, from our mistakes? Okay, I need to seal up that hole. So I'm just going to make sure all the filling is tucked away in there, and then just working a little bit at a time. I'm going to use my hot glue and press those two pieces together. I'm going to hold it until the glue sets. And then I also went around just to make sure I did get all those seams all closed off. I did discover a few spots where I didn't quite get enough hot glue. So I'm just going back in with my hot glue gun and pressing and sealing those all up wherever I missed a spot. Ugh, you know what? Crafting is all about experimenting, isn't it? But I really am happy with how this turned out, and it is such a cozy look, perfect for the winter season. I found this large piece of green felt fabric for $1 at my local thrift store. I was amazed that I picked this up for $1 because you usually spend about $1 on just a cheap piece of felt in the dollar store. I also got this Christmas tree template off of Canva. I'll have a link for that down below in the video description box for you to use as well. But if you have a cutting machine, then I highly recommend that you use that. Either a Cricut or a Silhouette or some other type of cutting machine will work as well. I know there's some of you do not have a cutting machine. There was a long time where I didn't have one, and this is what I would do. So I would find a template, print it out onto cardstock, and then cut it out. Now this is the tree shape that I chose to use, but Canva has some other ones to use. You can also find free files online to use. You just have to do a search on Google for that. Got it all cut out, and I placed it onto my felt fabric, and I'm going to cut a piece of fabric out. I'm going to show you a few different ways that you can cut this out. I was experimenting with different ways to cut it out to figure out the best way to do this. So you can see here I was doing it just freehand like this around it. It kept on slipping. My template kept on slipping on the fabric. So then I kept on having to line everything up, and I didn't get a very clean cut. I was getting really frustrated. It was also taking me a really long time to cut out the tree. Here I'm just going back in and cleaning up some of the tree just so I had a cleaner look. Next, I tried using a craft knife in a hard surface and cutting around. It cut through the felt really well, except that I was left with some sharp edges and I didn't like that. So what I ended up doing was going back in with my scissors to clean things up And again, it was just taking me way too long. So I was admittedly getting frustrated at this point with all the different techniques I was trying. But I did end up discovering, okay, I'm going to try pinning this into place. And I was reluctant to do this at first because I'm so bad at poking myself with the needles or the pin. So I was just being very, very careful with that. And I just continued to go ahead and trim around it. And I have to say, this worked so much better. So I was quite happy with that, but still it was taking me a long time to cut around it and fiddle around. So then I saw somebody else do this where they took their template, folded it in half, and what I did was just create a nice sharp crease. So I had a nice straight line. I folded it the opposite way and did the same thing, and then I cut that in half. And let me tell you, this worked so much better. So now I folded my fabric in half and I took the straight edge of my tree, butted it up against the fold line of my fabric, and then I pinned it into place. And this worked so much better. It just took half the time because of the fabric being folded in half. So as I mentioned before, this project will definitely go a whole lot faster if you have a cutting machine. I want to make some more of these trees, but I think I'm going to try using my laser cutting machine because it does have the blade cutting option. And I know that it would be just so much easier just to use a cutting machine. And my Cricut Joy Extra, this felt is just too thick for that machine. It will cut through some thinner felt, but not this thicker stuff. So you can see I'm just using my scissors to cut around this tree, and it's going way faster. I'm so happy. Okay, so I have a total of 6 of my trees cut out, and then I'm going to be using a branch for my tree trunk, but as an alternative, you could use a bamboo skewer if you can't get a branch. I'm just going to use this red willow one, but you can see that there was another option that I have laying there on the counter as well. I really like the red willow. I thought it would be really fun and festive, and I like the contrast of the red against the green as well. Just trimming it down to a more usable size. I've got 2 different sizes of my tree branch, and I'm just taking one of my felt trees, folding it in half and creating a nice crease. And I'm just going to measure it to see which thickness I wanted to use for my branch. I prefer the thicker one. I felt like it was just a little bit more substantial. Now I'm going to take each individual felt tree, I'm folding them in half, and I'm going to press down on the crease. I'm just using the heat from my fingers just to create that fold line and make sure it's as best as possible. You could definitely iron it if you prefer. I have like a mini heat press that would work really well for this. So now I'm going to start to assemble. I'm adding some hot glue, leaving about 1 centimeter from the top, and I'm going to press my stem on my felt, the edge of the felt next to the stem. I'm going to let that glue set up before I continue on. I'm going to take my next piece, again adding some hot glue, leaving 1 centimeter with no glue, adding it right along the edge, and I'm going to butt it right up against the piece that's already adhered to that branch. You want to make sure you want to put it right up against each other. That way here there's enough room for each of your tree pieces to go all the way around your branch. Now, I was kind of skeptical of whether or not that would be enough, or maybe it would be too many, but I made 2 of these and it was definitely enough. I'm sure if you went with a bigger tree, you could probably make some more. You'd have to experiment and see, but this size was about 6 pieces and they all fit perfectly. So I'm just going to continue on until I've got it all filled up. Once you have all your pieces in place, you can just kind of fluff it up a bit. And then I'm going to take a wood slice as my base. You could drill a hole into it if you'd like. I've seen some people do that, but not everybody has a drill. So I'm just going to put a pile of hot glue on there, put my stem into place, and you want to make sure you hold that until that glue sets. Yes, it'll take a little while, but it'll be worth it. I'm going in and adding some extra hot glue along the trunk and the base just to help to make sure it stays all nice and secure and stable. And then you're probably wondering, like, how am I going to cover up that mess of glue? I'm going to take a little bit of hot glue, not quite as much, then I'm going to press some green moss into that. You could also add faux snow if you prefer. Again, sorry for my hand there, so I'm going to just add some hot glue, and then I'm going to press the moss into that hot glue, and now it is ready for display. This is a really cute little set here. I actually think they look great with my pine cone trees, which I'll show here in a moment. Let me know what you think down below. If you love thrift store makeovers, you're going to want to check these ideas out right here, especially for the upcoming holiday season. I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.